Hello, everyone. Welcome to Going Live Best Practices. I'm David Needham. I'm very happy to be here today. Let's begin with a brief introduction. My name is David Needham. I'm a developer advocate at Pantheon. I spend the majority of my time here at Pantheon creating training material, various workshops, and improving our material over time, as well as running workshops like I am here right now. I'm very excited to be here today because I came from an agency background. I had a lot of experience launching websites on Pantheon. And it was all pretty easy for us, but sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes it can be very intimidating if you don't really know what you're doing or you're not sure what to expect. So I hope that by going through the workshop today, by having an opportunity to ask questions and get answers, I can help you to feel more comfortable taking your websites live. Now, there are many ways that you can participate in the workshop today. If you are live on Zoom, you can just use the Zoom chat and talk to us that way. We are also live streaming right now to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. If you are live streaming, if you're watching from one of those other places, well, good news, you can still use the little chat window, the little comment window right where you are. If you leave a message there, I will see it and I can address it directly. It's also where I'll be sharing links and things like that with you later. So if you have any questions, I would strongly encourage you to make use of the chat to let us know that you have a question or a concern or something you'd like to discuss, because this is your opportunity to make this workshop yours. By asking questions, by digging in and really taking advantage of the time that we have here today, you can contextualize this workshop to be useful for whatever it is that you're hoping to get out of it. If you just listen in, that's also totally fine. There's no shame in lurking and just watching. Welcome everyone who's doing that. That's totally okay. However, if you would like to ask questions and be a little bit more interactive, that is strongly encouraged. It would be welcome. All right, this is Going Live Best Practices. We do this one every on the fourth Thursday of every month. We have other workshops that we do. We actually just completed the Getting Started with Pantheon workshop in the previous hour. For this workshop here today, we're going to be going through the best practices to go live and give you opportunities to ask questions at the end. So we'll have lots of space for digging into whatever issues you might be having with Pantheon at the moment. In the Getting Started with Pantheon workshop, we talked about website operations, web ops. We talked about what that means and how it makes your team work more efficiently and more productively together on your website towards its goals. And we talked about Pantheon's workflow. We demonstrated walking through how to make a change on your website and publish it on your live website. In the Terminus workshop, we talk a lot about our command line interface, Terminus, to actually interact with Pantheon directly from your local environment, from your local computer, and do that instead of actually clicking buttons in the interface, because it'll be faster, it'll be more convenient for you once you understand the syntax, and also it leads you into being able to script, to being able to write little scripts that you just run for yourself, little utility things to save you time and hassle doing things that you'd otherwise have to click buttons for. So that's Terminus. Quicksilver is all about automation in a different sort of way. You can run scripts that run before or after any workflow in the Pantheon dashboard. So if you've ever wanted to have a Slack notification let you know when a website change gets pushed up to live, you can do that. If you've ever wanted to run an automated test to say, do a visual regression test on your test environment every time we deploy code there, you can do that as well. It's all pretty simple. And in that workshop, we talk about how to get started and start doing it yourself. In the website performance workshop, we talk about performance issues. We say how Pantheon helps keep your website fast. We share some troubleshooting tips, and we also talk about how to monitor performance over time and get alerted if things aren't quite going as well as you'd like using New Relic. So today we're going to be going through Going Live best practices, though. To start, let's start with a definition of how we think of ourselves at Pantheon. And we think of ourselves as a website operations platform. At a high level, this web ops thing really streamlines how work gets done through agile tools and processes. At this point, if you're thinking about launching your website, hopefully you've already experienced a lot of the agile tools that we're talking about, the structured agile workflow to publish changes up to your live site. But there are other ways to actually take advantage of these web ops benefits over time, because a lot of times a website is a living thing. For almost every case, a website has a purpose that is shifting or changing, or there's ways to improve it over time. And so even though you might be launching your website, you still want to make changes over time. You're still going to benefit from the tools and the web ops sort of mindset. The bare minimum that you need to take a website live on Pantheon is, well, your website, your code, your database, your files, and things like that. You also need to pick the plan that you're planning to go with. You need to add your domains into Pantheon, and then you need to configure your DNS on the domains with your domain registrar to point those over to Pantheon directly. Now, this is also a really good time to consider best practices. It's a good time to talk to your team, make sure everyone's on the same page about when the website's going live and what might be blocking the path to going live. Also, if you're building your website for a customer, whether it's someone internal or external, it's a good idea to talk to them as well along the way to make sure that you're on schedule for going live and their expectations are met, as well as making sure that if they have content creators or people that are currently doing work on the live website, their live website, the old website, make sure that they have a path forward to doing those things on the new website. Maybe they're doing them simultaneously right now. Maybe you're adding content in 2 places. Well, make sure that everyone is prepared for what's about to happen. Also, if you have contractors or if your customer has contractors, are they still necessary with the new workflow, with working on Pantheon, with launching in this new way? If so, do they need a Pantheon account directly? Should you give them SFTP access? Like, these are all conversations you should be having internally and with the end customer to make sure there are no surprises and everything can continue to run smoothly after you launch and switch over. Another best practice is, there's this awkward sort of phase when you launch a website that is like you switch over the domain to point to your new hosting provider. And when you do that, you switch over your DNS settings, which we told you about in the last step. But the problem is the DNS settings are cached at like every level in the chain above you. They're cached in your browser, in your router, in your not your CMS, but your ISP. Like at each stage, DNS is being cached. And so if you've ever visited the website before, all of that information pointing the domain to the old website is still there. And so if you switch the DNS settings over, you open the website, it's still going to point to the old website. But someone who visits the website for the first time might suddenly see the new website. And it becomes really awkward because I see the old version, you see the new version, and it's unclear exactly why that is or how long it will take before it's totally rectified. Well, the way to solve this is to lower your TTL. TTL just stands for time to live. In your domain registrar, where you have your domains purchased and all that stuff and configured, you can go into your DNS settings. When you know that you're going to be taking your website live soon, like in a day or two, go in, change your TTL to whatever the lowest value is. And then when your website goes live, you can switch over the DNS settings from your old IP address, your old server, over to Pantheon. And it will lower the amount of time that you have that awkward sort of like, it works for me, but not me sort of weirdness. So once it's all done, it will clear the TTL being low will clear the cache. So it'll work faster for everyone. And you can then switch back and increase the TTL again after everything is totally fine. It shouldn't affect any issues. It's not going to be a performance problem. It's not going to be a security problem or anything like that. It just makes it a lot easier as you're going through and launching the website. Once you're kind of ready to go, you're going to start thinking about what plan is appropriate for your site. Well, there's a lot of questions you can ask, like how many people actually visit your website right now? And then do we need a performance tier? If you need a performance tier, then you probably either have, you need more domains than you get with the basic tier, or you might have a lot of authenticated traffic, meaning that people are logging into your website. If your website is predominantly anonymous focused, meaning anyone visits but they never log in, then you might be fine on basic, depending on the other questions. But if you have lots of logged in people, if it's primarily a private sort of website, then you might want to consider performance just so you can benefit from Redis, from our object cache. It will speed up the performance of those pages that are a little bit more complex on your website, as well as the database queries that are happening under the hood for all of your logged in visitors, because they don't get to benefit from the caching layer the same way that those anonymous visitors do. So that's something to consider. Also, if your website has search, the built-in search for both WordPress and Drupal is okay, but not very flexible. It's not great. If you want more advanced search, if search is important to your website, you're going to want something like Apache Solr. And to do that, you also need to be on the performance tier or above on Pantheon. So these are all things to consider. One question that we commonly get, though, is like, well, how do you actually know that I picked the right plan? How can I be confident that the website's going to work after I hit the button to go live? Well, the way that our team does it internally, we have an onboarding team that helps with migrations, and the way that we prove success throughout this entire process and are absolutely certain the website's going to launch without a hitch is by using load testing. We look at the data for what you're currently getting on your website. We end up picking a plan based on about 10 times the amount of content or a number of visitors that you get right now. And we hit the website with that amount of traffic. We validate that, if your website goes viral on the day that it goes live on Pantheon, you're not going to have a bad day. Everything's going to be just fine. It's going to run the way you expect it to. You're not going to have slowness. You're not going to have an outage on a great day like that. So by doing this, we can be confident that the plan that you're on is probably going to be just fine with the spikes and valleys of being getting popular on the internet or whatnot, and probably be fine for into the future. So that's one way of checking. To set up a load test, you can start by enabling New Relic. You can do this on the free tier or any of the performance tiers and above. And so you enable New Relic so you can start monitoring performance of your site. You then hit your website with traffic, and you can do that by going to a third-party load test. There's some here mentioned on the screen, or you can actually set up some locally on your computer if you prefer to go that route. And then moving on to some other things, there are some additional performance topics that might be good to consider. We do have a performance guide. You'll get links to all these at the end of the workshop too, if you would like to follow up with any of these. There's a performance guide on the Pantheon docs that goes through some best practices for performance that are worth considering. But you can also go to a performance test. So something like Google PageSpeed or webpagetest.org will be able to help you identify some potential performance issues on your website before you actually go live. We do also recommend checking out the status check. So like on the sidebar of your site, in every environment, you get that status tab. It will tell you if you need to check on something like, hey, you don't have any backups, or hey, you have some security issues going on, or hey, you don't have caching configured properly. Those sorts of things are all addressed on this tab. And then, of course, setting up your backup schedule. Once you pick a plan, you can choose the day of the week that your backup is kept for the month. So this is a way of kind of ensuring that you have the backup that is best the best representation of your website at any given point in time. So I think weekends are pretty common, depending on when you make the changes to your website or when people are visiting your website most. You could decide which day of the week to keep your backup longer on. And then once you're ready to go, you actually go into the Pantheon dashboard. And actually, I'm going to show you this on our actual website instead of actually just flipping through the slides. But here is a website that we use for demos and things like that. Over on the live environment, if I switch down and I go to domains, I can see all the domains we currently have connected to this site. If I go in here and say connect domain, I can type in the information. I could say demo.com and click connect domain. And what it will do is actually tell me, it'll scan that domain for the current DNS settings, and it will say, oh, hey, we need this to be changed. The current DNS for the C name or the A record or whatever is this. You need to change it to that in order to actually point it to Pantheon. So there is some information here that you need to validate to make sure that you verify the domain. And you can choose these options, whatever you'd prefer. Once you verify that, first of all, this information is important for the HTTPS piece, because every website on Pantheon, every environment on Pantheon gets free HTTPS. There's no need to buy a certificate or bring a certificate with you to Pantheon. You just get it automatically. So all that information comes through. I'm going to skip for now, just because I don't want to have to verify that. And then see right here, it's going to tell you, here are the values that you actually need to plug into your domain registrar. If this is already a registered domain, which for most people it will be, it will detect, in some cases, who your domain registrar is. And if we have a docs page available to walk you through step by step how to change these settings, we'll display that on the page as well. So we try to be a little bit smart. We try to be as helpful as we can and lead you in the right direction of being able to connect your domain and actually point it over to Pantheon. So here are the values that I would do if I was activating this domain and pointing it to Pantheon. I'm not going to do that because it's not a real domain. I don't own it. So I'm going to click on the remove domain button and type in typo. There we go. So there were some other domains that were on the list already, and that's cool. We can actually click on these if we want. We can get details to show, yes, we have successfully set up, and this is what you'll see once you do it correctly. Once you update your values to point to Pantheon, it will check periodically and just make sure that things are still working right. If I move back here, you can see there are some that are actually currently incorrect. It says that things are not currently configured correctly, and we'll get this little setup required or update recommended message. I think for this one, actually, it's going to tell us that we need to do something slightly different. Over time, some best practices change, and sometimes, this is not broken right now, but the way that we used to recommend doing it was the best practice back then, and now we have new best practices. There are better ways of doing things, and so rather than adding a CNAME that points to this environment on Pantheon, we're switching to A records and these quad A, 4A records. And so it is a recommendation that we kind of switch this over. And so we can remove this one and add these, and we'll be good to go. There is also the option here to choose a primary domain. By choosing a primary domain, you're able to get automatic redirects from the other domains. This is important because for SEO purposes, Google and Bing and all the other ones penalize websites that have, like if multiple websites have identical content, that's seen as being potentially spammy. There's something a little suspicious going on there. So rather than have, if you go to your website, like, mysite.com, and it works, and then you also go to www.mysite.com and that works, but you keep the www in there, that means you have two websites technically. You have one with the www and one without. And then if you have other domains that are sort of like aliases that also point to your main website, even though you only have one website, the internet perceives you as having multiple websites, all with the same content on it. And that's a bit of a no-no. It's not a severe problem, but it is a problem that SEO engines can penalize you for. So to help with that, you choose your primary domain. This will automatically configure the settings on Pantheon to redirect all of the other traffic from these other domains over into your primary domain so that you don't have that problem anymore and everything will continue to work the way you'd expect. Now, there are a few other areas on here on the sidebar that I could jump into. It's a little bit more of the basic class instead of the going live class. So let me switch back, and we're sort of at the break even point now where we're ready to switch over into accepting questions. So let me share this link. This is a great time if you're watching, if you have any questions about going live on Pantheon, about sharing any concerns or any things that you've experienced so far that you'd like to just share with us, feel free to do that. That will all, any questions that you put into the chat window or the comment window where you are right now will show up in my interface, and I can jump in and try to help you with that. While I'm waiting for questions to come in, I'm actually going to talk about this link that I just put into the chat window. Oops, one second. I need to make this screen no longer full screen. There we go. So with this link that I just shared you in the chat window, it has a link to the previous time that we gave this workshop. So you always have a copy of the workshop that you're watching right now, essentially. We also have a section for feedback, and feedback is extremely important. I mentioned at the very beginning of the workshop when I introduced myself that the majority of what I do today at Pantheon involves training. And I spend a lot of time updating our training workshops based on feedback. I read every single comment that comes through. I review it. I share feedback with the trainers whenever it comes in. And so I take feedback very, very seriously. If there is anything at all that we can improve about this workshop, please let me know. Use the link, fill it out. It's really, really quick. And just let me know what I can improve, because I sincerely want to make it better for people that take this workshop in the future. Also, if you enjoyed the workshop today, I would love to know that you feel that way, because we are trying to measure the success of this workshop. And one of the ways we can do that is just by people telling us that they enjoyed it or that they learned something. Also, we're considering other formats for this workshop. We're not sure if this format is working, to be perfectly transparent, and we're thinking about trying some other things. So if you thought this was great, let us know. If you have any other ideas, other things we could try, other topics to get into, please also leave that feedback as well. It's all very, very welcome and appreciated. Now, we do have links here. I mentioned earlier that all those links on the slides are available at the end. This is where you can find them. They're all right here in this resources section. And then there are many ways that you can keep learning after today. If you have a question about this workshop or something related to going live, you can always click this link here to go into our Discuss forum and ask a question or share things related to this workshop. This will be a forum where I'll be actively monitoring. Some people from our community will be monitoring, and we'll be able to help you directly because we want to see you succeed and to see you launch your website in the smoothest way possible. Now, we also have a community made up of the forum as well as our Slack. It's literally thousands of people in our friendly community. So join it, bring your questions, bring your comments, and share with us. We also have Pantheon support. If there's anything wrong with Pantheon, you can always open up support, open up the chat, and let us know, and we will be happy to help you through there. We also have Pantheon office hours. Every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central, we have a Zoom call just like this, or actually not like this, because if you're streaming, we don't stream our office hours, but it's a Zoom call, just a normal Zoom, and we invite people to share their video and audio and share their screens if it's helpful, and just bring their questions. We go around the room, giving everyone a chance to ask their questions. We help answer their questions, and we just keep doing that round robin style for the entire hour. Sometimes people will just drop in and kind of do some co-working and figure out like what other people are asking, kind of get a sense for the room and what they can do. So if you'd like to just check it out, you can always join. You can listen in and co-work along with us as we're answering questions. And then finally, if you would prefer to learn in a different sort of way, we have written like guides that can help walk you through material like this. We also have private training. If you or your team would prefer a private training covering maybe advanced topics that go above and beyond the sort of training that we do publicly, we are more than happy to cover that, pretty much any topic. So you can use this link here, you can fill out the form and let us know if there's anything we can help you with in regards to training. All right, and with that, I don't see any questions in the window, so I guess I will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all very much for attending the workshop today. As I said, I am genuinely grateful that you're here, and I hope that it was useful for you. Please leave feedback if you can. I'm grateful for everyone who leaves feedback, and I will see you around the community. I will hope to see you next time.